and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about plants that I have chopped back to pretty much nothing, like the roots, whether that be voluntarily or involuntarily. I've had situations of both, and I just thought it'd be really interesting to see this sort of thing. Like, I wish I had seen this at the beginning of my plant journey to show that it's like, it's okay to kind of start fresh again, and it's not necessarily the end of the world, and it might work and it might not, but there's no harm in trying. This is gonna be an interesting video, and I like showing like the sort of progress these plants have made after having been basically leafless nothing for, in some cases, months. So yeah. If you don't know me already, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet, so if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. Alright, let's look at these plants. So the first plant I want to talk about is my Scindapsus officinalis. I bought this plant, I think in October of last year, so 11 months ago. And it had several leaves on it. I think it had 3 or 4, and it was doing really well. I got it in soil, but I decided that I wanted to try it in pon. A lot of my other Scindapses were doing really well in pon, and so I figured let's put this one in pon as well. And it threw an absolute fit. And it's one of the few plants that I've actually had issues in pon with, Scindapsus in general. Sometimes they work really well, sometimes they throw fits. This one unfortunately threw the biggest tantrum of all and it dropped all of its leaves. And unfortunately I don't have any footage of this because I had no idea what was going on, and I just kind of like freaked out and I didn't record anything, and this was like, what, late last year? And so I decided to take it back out of pon and I put it back into soil, and it was just like a leafless thing for so freaking long. Like, oh my goodness, I had no idea whether or not this plant was going to survive. For months and months and months, it looked just like this. Like, it wasn't dying, but it also wasn't giving me anything. Its roots didn't look like they were rotting. I was kind of watering it normal-ish, of course less than I would a plant that was like growing like crazy, but when the soil got dry I would water it. So I'm not exactly sure when I brought it back into soil from pon. I don't really have an update on that. I've like gone through all of my old videos to like scour footage and look through my stories and stuff, and so I don't really know when it was, but by March there was still nothing. It was just this little stump of a plant that wasn't doing anything, and I had no idea if it was gonna live or not. But I just kept it in my IKEA cabinet. It just stayed in there for ages, and eventually it freaking sprouted. So by May time, so probably about 6 or 7 months after all of its leaves fell off, it began to sprout again. And I was so freaking excited. And by June, it had its first new leaf again. Yes! And it was just like the best feeling. I was so proud of that plant, and like it really taught me patience and kind of like not to give up on things, which I know is like kind of what our plants do anyways, but it just like, it felt so good. And so this is the plant now. I know it's not huge, but Scindapsus grow quite slowly for me when they're not fully established yet. But oh my god, look! It's so beautiful. It's got 3 leaves and it's just chilling in my IKEA cabinet. But oh my god, I am so happy for this plant. It's been nearly a year since I got it, probably 9 months since I chopped it back, and it is like properly coming back to life now, which I'm so happy for. I'm so glad for it because I really love this plant so freaking much, and I'm just so glad it's back. It took a break for like so long, but now it is back. Yes. But yeah, this was like kind of one of the first plants that inspired this video, just because patience is important and things can come back. Yay! Another plant I unintentionally chopped back to basically nothing was my Scindapsus Silver Hero. It was a wish list plant for ages, and I got one as a cutting. I decided to root it in perlite, and that worked super duper well, so I decided to put it into pon. And so I put it in pon in January, and boy did it freaking hate it. Again, it was just one of the few times where a plant just rejected pon, but I persisted this time. I was like, okay, the roots aren't dying in there, it's just dropped its leaves. It's struggling from the stress. It had only had one leaf, so it dropped its leaf. It's going through a shock. Let's wait it out and see if it does anything. And so I kept it in my living room in pon underneath a cloche to make sure it was getting lots of humidity for months and months and months and months and months. And then by May, it had a new freaking leaf. So that's 5 months. 5 months after it dropped its leaf and was basically nothing, a little tiny nothingness in a thing of pon in a cloche, and eventually it did come back and sprout, and this is what it's looking like now a few months later. Again, it's not anything insane, but seeing as it had nothing for so long, it having 2 leaves feels like heaven to me. And this was so bad that I ended up getting another Silver Hero as like a security plant because I didn't want to lose it completely. So I did get another one, and I have refused to put that one in pon. It's just living in soil, and I will not take it out of the soil because I'm terrified that if I do, and it's gonna die. And so now I've got one in soil and one in pon, and I would love to combine them, but I can't because I'm so afraid of taking that step and potentially scaring one again and like putting it through the shock. So I might just not. Or I should. Should I just be brave? If I should be brave, put a what's a brave emoji? Put this emoji down below in the comments if you think I should be brave, and join the two together. I can make a video on it if you want to see that. Should I be brave? Let me know, because right now I'm not feeling brave. But yeah, so I'm surprised that these Scindapsuses both decided to reject the pon a little bit. I'm glad this one has come back around to it and got over the initial shock of going into pon. And again, I'm proud of myself for sticking with it this time, because with the aficionados I freaked out and was like, ah, no! So I'm super happy with this one and very proud of it, and super glad that I didn't lose it completely, because for a while it was touch and go. Like really touch and go. The next plant that I unintentionally chopped back to basically nothing. This one's a little bit more than nothing. It had a single very ugly looking leaf, but it is my banana plant, my muse dwarf. Basically, I went away over Christmas this past year, and when I came back I realized that I'd forgotten to water it before I went away. So it was super dry, and it had lost loads and loads of leaves. Like you could see, they are super not ideal. So I had to take some of those off, but then it kept growing new leaves kind of within the other leaves. Like I don't know if there wasn't enough humidity or what, but it just wouldn't put out, like it wouldn't spread out its growth like I knew it should be. So one day in March, in a moment of weakness, I decided to peel back all the leaves, try and separate them a bit to help it grow a little bit more like that. Bad idea. I ended up stripping it down to a single ugly leaf, and it was just like in this huge pot, and it was just a single leaf, and it looked so bad, and I was like so tempted to just get rid of the plant. I didn't think it was growing well for me. It wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, so I was just like, maybe I should throw it away. I didn't, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be in this video, but oh god, it was really, really bad. So a few months later in May, I was doing another houseplant update video, and this is what it was looking like. As you can see, it had grown several more leaves, but again, they're kind of like sticking to each other and like being inside of each other. It felt really weird, but I was just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna strip it back again. I can't go through that stress again and hurt it like that again. And so I decided to just let it be for a little bit. And now, what is it? It's September, and this is what it's looking like. Ah! I mean, it is absolutely nothing compared to what it was when I first got it. It was huge and beautiful, and I ruined that, but it is doing pretty freaking well now. As you can see, the leaves aren't really going into each other anymore. They're growing out, which I freaking love, and it has so much growth. It's grown a decent amount, and it has lost leaves in this time. It did also get thrips in this time, and I've had to treat it, so it's not perfect, but it's definitely growing, and it's definitely a lot happier now. So I am glad I did it originally, but also mad at myself because I shouldn't have done it. Does that make sense? I regret it, but I don't at the same time. And also, I don't know if you can see in there, I'll have to insert a clip, but it's got a couple little baby plants in the bottom of the pot, which is super cute. So maybe one day I will have a fuller plant that'll grow out of this, and maybe those would have popped up regardless of whether or not I chopped it back. Maybe they wouldn't, but I'm just really happy with it and proud of it, and I'm glad that I finally have a plant that looks nice again, because it was not looking nice for quite a while. I mean, it still looks kind of weird being in such a big pot but such a small plant, but I'm sure its roots are probably pretty decent, so I'm not actually gonna mess with them further. So the first plants that I kind of intentionally chopped back to nothing were my marantas. So I had both my green maranta and my variegated green maranta were suffering. They were doing really, really poorly. They had thrips and spider mites, and then I treated them, and then I quarantined them in my bathroom, which is good to keep them away from other plants, but bad because my bathroom is windowless. So I think I left them in there just a little bit too long, unfortunately, and they were sad, like so sad. And so I decided to pull them out of their pond and have a look at the roots. The roots looked perfectly okay, and there was actually some sprouts in the roots as well. And so I decided to chop back all of the growth, all of the stems that were old, kind of dying, and start like basically from nothing. And then I put them on my shelves in the office underneath a grow light. And by May, the plain green one already had sprouted some new leaves, and they were huge, like way bigger than the leaves it had before, like nearly the size of my hand. Big leaves. And I was so like a bit confused because I was like, I'd never done something like this intentionally before, and so it felt really good to be not vindicated in it, but like have it succeed so well. By June, the variegated one had also pushed out some new growth, and again, the leaves were massive. I think they loved being under such intense grow light. They were quite close to it, which was awesome, but it meant that eventually I had to move them out of that spot because they were a little bit too close and were getting a bit burnt. So I have moved them out from under there now, and this is what they are looking like now. So this is the green variegated one, and oh my goodness, it is such a big plant. I did have to move it because it got a bit sunburnt, well, grow light burnt there where it touched my grow light on the shelves, so I had to move it out of the way. And since then it has been moved to a slightly darker spot, so it's not growing leaves quite as big, but even still, like, the growth on these leaves in its old spot was amazing. And I'm really tempted to put it back somewhere that's a little bit brighter because I really loved how big these leaves were, and the sort of variegation on them was stunning. I mean, it's still pretty good, but I mean, just having the big leaves, it just blew me away, and it gave me the confidence to chop plants back like this because they came back like crazy compared to the Scindapsus, which didn't as much. Anyways, I'm just so proud of these plants. Like 6 months ago they were chopped back to nothing, and now look at that. So amazing. This is the green one as well. And it did have thrips recently, so I'm trying not to touch the plant, and I will wash my hands right after I touch this and put it back into quarantine. It's living in the bathroom again right now, the windowless bathroom. So hopefully we don't encounter the same problem. I'm going to be a bit more careful to not let it be in there for too long. But even still, its growth is looking amazing, and it has some really big, beautiful leaves. Again, a bit smaller as it comes to the newer growth, but in the end, it's still just like absolutely amazing, and I'm so proud of these plants. And it just kind of goes to show how hardy they are. They are super hardy plants and absolutely stunning. So that was kind of like the turning point for my chopping plants back to nothing journey. After that, I started gaining a lot of confidence in doing that, and I did it with several other plants. So let's have a look at those ones. So I got this Syngonium albo in a rescue box in April. I did a video on it over on my Patreon unboxing that, so if you want to join my Patreon, you can go back and watch it. Basically, it was very tall, like mostly reverted, didn't have the best growth structure, and I knew eventually, once it had acclimated to my home, that I was planning on chopping it back to absolutely nothing, and so that's what I frickin' did. In June, I chopped all of the leaves off, like literally back to nothing, and I ended up propping all the growth, and I've made new plants out of that, which is amazing, but it was nothing in the soil. And I don't have very many pictures of this because I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but this is what it's looking like now. It's a full proper plant. And chopping it back also kind of re-brought out the albo variegation in it. It's had so much more variegation now than before, when it was basically entirely green. Like, I have an entire green syngonium plant, all made from cuttings from this. But this is so freaking beautiful. I'm sure it has an amazing root system. I mean, it did when I got it. I had repotted it in some syngonium soil, so it's in a very, very healthy, nice soil from Soil Ninja, specifically made for syngoniums. And it's just going for it, and I think it's absolutely awesome. Like, this is my best syngonium albo, and I have another one, and it's not growing nearly as well as this one. This one's got like so many different growth points, which I think chopping it back activated those growth points. So if that's another reason you can chop stuff back, because it'll force other like auxiliary buds to like come up. But yeah, it's good. So it brought back the variegation, and now I have this beautiful syngonium albo, which I absolutely love, and it's so pretty. I think this one is getting a bit burnt as well in the spot it's in because of the grow light, but that's okay. That's okay. The next plant I got in June. I got it in that like mini haul of plants my friend gave me because she was moving away. So one of them was this Cebu blue pothos, and it was looking a little bit scraggly. It needed some loving. So I decided to chop back all of its leaves to propagate out, hence why I have about a bajillion Cebu blue pothos propagations around. And it had like a moss pole in it. It wasn't the best moss pole in the world, but it was fine, but I wanted to take it out. And when I was taking it out, I saw these roots, and they were insane. Like, it was so root bound. It was crazy. They were too good to possibly throw away. I was planning on just like dumping them and just saving the cuttings, but when I saw this, I could not throw them away. So I eventually got the moss pole out, and I decided to keep the pot, and it's grown back so full. Like, I think I had one leaf on it that I decided to let it keep, and the rest I just chopped back to nothing, and it has popped from so many axillary buds, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's got 9 growth points on this, and I think part of that is because it's got some insanely amazing roots. But I am just so freaking proud of this plant, and like the growth looks so healthy. These leaves are so big and strong and beautiful. that I'm just really hoping I can continue to give it a good life because it deserves it. And yeah, I just really love this plant, and I'm hoping to have this one be my like trailing one, because I have my climbing one and I like watching that one climb, but I really love like a big beautiful trailing Cebu blue. And so I'm hoping that that is what this one can be one day. It's starting to trail a little bit. I think this was the growth that I had left on it, hence why it's a little bit longer. But I'm hoping that I can just get it to trail beautifully, because that would be amazing. The next plants that I ended up chopping back were the ones that I chopped back after I came back from holiday. This was my Piper sabbaticum. It was so crispy, beyond belief, dead. So I basically had to chop it back, and so I decided to chop it to its little stalks in hopes that maybe it'll come back. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it will. So the roots looked fine when I repotted it, but they were a little bit dry because it hadn't been watered. And so now that I have been giving it water, I think the roots are rotting a little bit. So I don't know if this one is going to be savable. Probably not, actually. I should probably just throw it out. Yeah, because these roots are feeling like so mushy and like easily tearable and just like unhealthy sort of vibes. So I think this one is probably a goner, actually, which is really sad because I loved my Piper. I thought it was beautiful, but it's okay. I do have another cutting that I got from Memo, so I'm very, very happy about that. But it's just a shame that not all plants can be saved. We can try, but they're not all going to be savable. So here's a real example of that. Unfortunately, this one was not savable, but the other one that I chopped back during that session of chopping things and rescuing those plants is my little baby varicosum, which I ended up chopping back the stem. It had quite a few nodes on it that didn't have leaves because those leaves had dried up and were gone. So I was like, well, I don't really want to have a big, tall, long plant with no leaves. So I decided to chop it, and I chopped it back to 2 nodes and kept the roots because they were healthy, and I've got sprouts. Look, I've got a little sprout coming in there, which is super exciting. I feel like varicosum are fairly hardy plants, and they, like philodendron in general, tend to do really well being pruned back because they do have quite a lot of like secondary growth points. So I think this one's going to be completely fine. I will update you all when it does put out a new growth, probably on Instagram, because I'll be so freaking excited about it that I'll be like, look now! But yeah, so here is my final little semi-success story in action. It's not quite success yet, but I'm sure it will be. My little baby varicosum. So that is it. Those are plants that I have chopped back to basically nothing and started afresh with. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspired you to potentially not throw away those dead plants completely. If their roots are fine, then they might have a chance of succeeding, and there is no harm in trying. As long as you have the space to do it, I say you should give it a go. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future. Don't forget to leave the emoji here if you want to see me attempt to be brave with my Scindapsus Silver Heroes, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!